My name is Saint7, and I am going to be reacting to this video right here. I fast forward through some of it just to get to certain parts, you know. But yeah, so here we go.
Is it though? I mean, seriously, is it though? Because there are some, relationships. Like, I could be wrong. I don't know for sure, but I imagine that if Brad Pitt's doing an interview, he might be like, "Don't bring up Angelina Jolie. If you want to talk to me again, don't bring her up."
Right.
And I could see his people saying that, or the reverse. So I could see Angelina Jolie saying,
"Okay,
don't bring that son of a bitch up, because I just can't stand it."
I mean, I understand the point. It's a valid point, but this isn't Brad Pitt, and it's not Angelina Jolie. It's Marilyn Manson, whom continued to talk about Ed and Rachel Wood on and off through, in every other interview ever since they broke up until around 2016 or 2017. And he would always refer to her as the girl with three names. And he would always say, "Don't trust the girl with three names." It just doesn't really pertain here. It's not the same thing. Oh, he can sit around and talk about her and make comments and all that in every other interview for years and years, but just before the allegations come out, when people online were just were connecting the dots, and the interview wasn't even about that, really. He was just wanting to talk about cancel culture or whatever, and he was warned. The magazine was warned to not bring her up. Come on, it's not the same thing. I'm sorry.
Right. Or Johnny Depp wasn't talking much about Amber Heard. So is it really necessarily, and we're not claiming any kind of abuse there or anything, right? We're just saying, hey, I can't stand my ex's guts. So I'm just questioning if that's really unusual.
That wasn't even the only thing. It was more so also the funny part, like the follow-up, because after that, they were like, okay, well, it wasn't the end of the communication. Like, after that, Manson's team was like, okay, fine, we'll answer some of your questions. And then the way they answered also, so it added on, like, the way they answered the questions also felt like a lot of misses. But yeah, that is a solid point. And I guess also for me, though, because Marilyn Manson has always been like a provocateur, like a shock rocker, whether he's like a shock rocker in his performance and his art, he'll shock you because you'll realize that, oh, wow, he's actually kind of intelligent in the way he answers questions in interviews and stuff. He's an intelligent man.
So you know what, on that note, it's kind of weird because I am older than you. Manson and I are like a year apart in age. So it's sort of weird to me because I'm like, well, I expect that because I grew up with Alice Cooper. I grew up with Gene Simmons. I grew up with David Bowie. And these guys,
what were they like?
They're out there. They're shocking. But guess what?
Well,
pretty intelligent. You don't get on top.
We all know who David Bowie is. We all know who Alice Cooper is. We all know all of that. This world is the way it is due to these artists that came around before. Everybody is really just taking what they see and recreating it into something else. And with each generation, it became more and more intense. And I'm not to say anything about today's generation or anything, but I haven't seen any artist do what Marilyn Manson has done. I think it pretty much ended with him because there was nowhere else to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, he took it as far as it could go, and where else would you go from there? So the very fact that Eric is even saying this kind of stuff is just like, okay, he was there, but Marilyn Manson is a product of all of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on now. If you've seen Marilyn Manson, then not much could really shock you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what he's trying to say with that.
The game without skills. He's been at it for 30 years. That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no. Well, let's see. No, I did forget what I was saying though. So like I guess they wanted to talk about cancel culture essentially, and then they were kind of asking like, are you afraid it's gonna come for you, kind of thing, or I don't know exactly what the question was, but he kind of was just like, I don't want to talk about it. So to me, like, I think it's worth like kind of criticizing, like, wait, so this man that wants to push the envelope, provoke people, constantly like criticize, and all of a sudden he's scared of some like an innocent question, and like the way he kind of like walks around things doesn't really seem to follow the same narrative of like, oh yeah, I put a gun up to this guy's Spin magazine's mouth, and like, oh yeah, the Christianity's fascism, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't really like. So that's just kind of the thing. Like, my videos are more like I try to put a lighthearted spin, and I'm kind of like, what? Like, this doesn't really like add up. And of course, in that video, nobody had come out, so I was kind of trying to connect the dots. Like, it does kind of seem like she's talking about him, and yeah, I was kind of analyzing it. So obviously, it was very much beforehand.
Okay, well, I think it's. Why I think the timeline is so interesting is you did, while you were on with Colonel Kurtz, you did mention that you did talk to Ilma Gore once. Was this prior to your video, or was it sometime after your video?
No, it was in January, so
2021 or 2022?
2021, yeah. So
okay.
After the video, I talked to her, and that's when she told me that, like, she didn't tell me anything that isn't known now. She basically told me that they were in touch with the FBI, and I'll admit that in her tone it sounded like she was sure like something would happen sooner than obviously nothing has happened, So
well, yeah, the FBI. Obviously, that's a whole nother subject that's going to come up, and you're kind of, to me, if I had put together the piece, honestly, and that's part of why I want to have you on here, I would be worried about everything that's come out since, because there's a whole lot. Those filings aren't necessarily 100% factual. Obviously, they're going to support Manson's side, but they're illuminating. They're very illuminating. And very troublesome. And the documentary itself, so I'm going to stay with 2020. In the documentary itself, they had the, group, I don't know, support session. It wasn't really a therapy session.
I don't know if they labeled it, but obviously it is meant to be kind of a therapeutic, cathartic kind of thing, I would say, right?
Except it doesn't resemble any kind of therapy. And if anything,
therapy.
We've been covering that.
They never said it was therapy.
It's a problem when you have all these people talking about somebody who coincidentally all come out on the same day in February. Of course, when they're talking in their session, there's cameras, and I always wonder, it's like, do I need cameras around while I'm seeking group therapy? That seems a little not cool.
Well, it's a documentary, so...
Did that give you any kind of pause?
I mean, I'm not saying that it was done well.
Well, I guess, see, your approach is different. Like, your critical approach is different than my critical approach, because I am critical of that film or two-part documentary, whatever people want to call it. First of all, I'm not very trusting of HBO ever since they completely did that flop of a piece against Michael Jackson. Like, that's completely terrible. Like, at least when you have something like Phoenix Rising, like the title says it, it's gonna be, have a strong bias for Evan Rachel Wood because it's in the title, right? But when, sorry, not to derail with Michael Jackson. Yeah, and and like, because sorry, now I got Michael Jackson always triggers my mind to start thinking about all the crap that's but yeah, basically
I had one of his lawyers on, actually.
Who, Tom Mesereau, or
no, the one who sued the Britain and got a pulled.
Who gives a shit?
The guy who screwed over Princess Di, I forgot his name. The same guy who got fired. He's with Alec Baldwin recently.
He constantly does it.
Bashir guy.
Bashir, yeah. Martin Bashir.
You talking to him?
So does Colonel
I wasn't talking to Martin Bashir. I was talking to Michael Jackson's lawyer who got the video that Bashir did removed from everything.
That's epic. But yeah, sorry. Oh, right. So yeah, I was critical in that like, I felt like, because you were asking, like, and I'm also asking the same thing, like, what exactly was that, right? Like, And I like to do videos that will kind of bring things that people can understand. Like, I want to be as comprehensive as possible. And when I saw that part of the film, especially that part, or I just didn't understand what really the point was, other than to show that, yeah, okay, he may have other victims, but like, it was presented in a way that it wasn't properly introduced. Like, not everybody in the room was introduced. And I understand it's possible that some people didn't want to be on camera, didn't want to say things, but like, it felt awkward. And that was kind of my perception, is like, I didn't really know what people were there to say, other than, I guess, back up Evan. So yeah, it kind of felt like kind of just thrown in there. That's
which is, dare I say, problematic. I mean, you are talking about accusations with multiple people together in a session, and I won't say conspiracy, but it could be a cousin. I'm just saying.
I can see where you're coming from.
It's right there. I'm just looking at what they're putting out.
See, and the issue is because, like, yeah, I can't exactly like say. Look, I don't believe. See, it's been a while since I watched it, but like, I don't know. It doesn't stand out to me what the other people said in the room as far as their allegations and stuff, or what their stories were. Right? It was obviously very Evan focused, and I guess that is kind of an issue, because it's like, well, you don't know what to make of it, right? And I think that is kind of what my issue with the documentary was. It was kind of scattered. It's like, you don't know what to make of it.
If you, and I would really, obviously you don't have time to watch everything at once, so you don't have to watch my video breaking it down. Don't watch the documentary yourself. Just sit back and just watch it and look at the way they're interacting, because they're not actually just sharing. In my opinion, they're one-upping each other. Like, oh yeah, he did this to you, oh, he did this to me. And they're finishing each other's sentences. And that was something that was pointed out, that if it was actually a therapy session, a group therapy session.
I think that's just how these women talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know how some women can, when they get excited about things, they do kind of talk over each other and interrupt each other and seemingly have some sort of attitude or vendetta against, you know what I'm saying? I think that's just how some women can be in a setting like that, especially when there is no therapist or anybody there to sort of keep it in control. Women can get very temperamental and very passionate about what they're saying, and plus you have to take into consideration that it was poorly edited, I will say, not very good editing at all. So you can't really watch that and come up with any kind of deep conclusions about some sort of conspiracy, in my opinion. All you can really do is take it for what it's worth, choose to believe it or not, and throw it out, because that was so chopped up and so edited that we don't even know if certain reactions really were true reactions to what was being said. And, I mean, come on now. Come on.
That person will be thrown out of the room, or they'd be attacking each other, because it's very verboten that you interrupt a person when they're sharing, something. This is really intimate, horrible stuff that they're talking about. And to do it in a trivial manner is offensive.
Well, and I'm more inclined to, instead of go to that, I kind of more inclined to ask questions, like, because obviously when they film something, like, even when they film anything, they probably spent like at least 5 hours in that room, and we only get to see like a few minutes. And I'm more inclined to ask, like, okay, so did they mic up and camera right away, or like how exactly did they get to the scenario, right? Because yeah, I definitely see like that was awkward, and like whoever edited it's like kind of, is that the best you could have gotten, And maybe they got even better conversations off camera, and like, oops, because also part of the reason why I actually went offline last year is because I was actually in a documentary, and I know how shitty those can turn out. Like people that make these, like they like don't really have, and not to blame. Like I see, so part of me, I guess, is to blame the documentary more than like the people that are in it, because I just feel like they don't know what they're doing. And I would like to do from my channel. I would like to do these kinds of things myself, where I talk to people head on and like give them the chance to kind of actually like Evan, instead of going to Good Morning America, let's talk and let's give people what they actually want to hear, you know, because I feel like they often give very canned responses to everything. And yeah, I mean, I see where criticisms are coming from. I mean, I have different ones,
and plus you have to take into consideration that, you know, you can't just create whatever the fuck you want, you know, left, right, center, willy-nilly in the industry. You know what I'm saying? Everything has to go through somebody else. And there are only so many options for, you know.
Hoping for more. I mean, she's got the chance to bring up better receipts or something, right? Because especially if she wasn't planning on suing, I feel like there could have been more to add. Or at the very least, if there wasn't more to add, then there could have been more to trim out some of that fat. For example, like, I don't know why we needed to see the Hanukkah scene. Like, that was kind of, you know, but yeah.
Could it be that there was nothing there to have? Is it possible?
Well, I think the Hanukkah scene was like in the same kind of part where she eventually did the typing of the Instagram. So I guess it was just extra. Like it just felt like excess fat. Like just trim it, you know.
Is it, or is it to establish that she is in fact very Jewish and he is considered anti-Semitic? No, I mean because there are those claims that he is a World War II fan of certain German figures that we can't say on YouTube.
This part is just so, like, blown out of proportion. I mean, everybody is so focused on this specific allegation that she made. And it wasn't even really technically an allegation. I mean, it was more a side note. It was more... I mean, it's not even the worst thing that she said about Marilyn Manson. I think what she said was very understandable and very human and very normal. I mean, not everything is so black and white, you know what I'm saying? And I can totally see how it would be possible that when she started hanging out with him, you know, everything was all colorful and flashy and cool and mysterious and shocking even, you know, and she wanted to be a part of it. She felt like she was part of the cool kids, you know what I'm saying, and everything was great. And at this point, you know, he wasn't like coercing her to you know, say Hell Hitler or whatever it is, you know, and draw mustaches on folks. You know, she was taking it into her own hands and doing it and having a good time, and you know, it was just part of her you know, going through a rebellious phase, you know, and rebelling against her own Jewish background. And I'm sure Marilyn Manson loved that. I mean, come on, let's not forget that if he's doing all that, you know, with his friends and having a good gay time and all that shit, then he lives this type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's all fun and games, even if he believes thoroughly that he's not harming anyone and all that, you know, it's just the fact that he pushes it so hard. And you can, if you're honest, you can see that. Come on, it's not far-fetched to believe that, say, you know, you met him or you started hanging out with him or started dating him or whatever, and you'd be all over it too, right? And he ain't gonna stop you. He's gonna encourage it, especially if you have a Jewish background. He's gonna be like fucking ecstatic about it, right? He probably saw that as some sort of accomplishment on his part, you know? But then, you know, just like every relationship and every situation, things started to calm down and things started to, you know, maybe she wasn't even regretting it at the point or anything. She just started to just kind of lose interest and being that flashy and shocking about it. Maybe she just started to feel tired and wanted to get into something else, or, you know, and it wasn't even personal. It was just, you know, how you sometimes lose interest in doing certain things, especially if you do it a shit ton of times, and it starts to get old, you know. And maybe Marilyn, maybe he saw that. Maybe he noticed it, and maybe he started to feel paranoid. Maybe he started to think, you know, like maybe she's losing interest in him, you know, or shit, I don't know. Maybe Marilyn really holds that sort of imagery and those sort of games that he plays. Maybe he really holds that sort of stuff dear to him, as if that's what he feels like he can offer to people, you know. Maybe he thinks that that's the only way he knows how to entertain. So maybe on some level he started to feel like paranoid that, you know, that she was just not gonna like his sense of humor anymore, or whatever, you know. That's totally understandable. And so, and of course he's human and he's not perfect, and nobody is. Whenever we feel like that, like we start to feel like we're a cliche, or someone's getting tired of us, you know, no matter if we're Marilyn Manson or we're average Joe or Joanne, you know, we start to get defensive. So maybe he reacted to that as if, you know, like what she said in the documentary. Maybe he reacted like, you know, oh, you don't get the joke, you know, or whatever. And then maybe she was thinking, oh, I get the fucking joke, I just fucking don't find it funny anymore, you know. I mean, and maybe she said that. Maybe she even was like, oh, I get the fucking joke, you know, I don't know, I'm just bored of it, I don't think it's funny anymore. And then maybe he came back at her with, you know, what was it that she said? Maybe later on that's when he said, you know, if you don't make the same joke, you know, I'm not gonna trust you, or whatever. And maybe he, you know, people get paranoid sometimes, especially if he's doing shocking shit like that all the time, left, right, center, willy-nilly. Maybe he was on some drugs and he got paranoid about it and thinking that if she didn't do it along with him whenever he's entertaining his crowd, that would look bad on him, you know. And so he had to, you know, insult her and make her feel, you know, it's really silly, but I could totally see that. I think that's totally plausible. And again, that doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that, I mean, that's definitely an asshole move, and it's very immature, and it's like, come on, Brian, get out of your image. You know, it just shows you, the whole point of the story is to show you how lost in his own image he really is. That's really the whole point of the whole fucking story. And I wish people would fucking just get it. It's not that complicated, people. You know, it's not. It's a normal thing. I think a lot of people have gone through something similar to that before, you know, with people that they admire or whatever. You know, you start to get tired of doing shit like that. You start to get tired of always trying to rebel and do the most shocking thing ever. I mean, it just starts to feel like people are expecting it, and there's only so many shocking things that you could do. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, you know, he nobody has gone as far as he has, and nobody has gone further than he has. So I couldn't really see how that could become a problem. And it was in his social circle, you know. And when Manson doesn't feel like he knows himself very well, there's a crisis to be had. I mean, we all know this. So anyway.
Well, if that was the goal, I don't think it really panned out as much as they would have liked, because it wasn't close enough. I don't think. So
what? She had a fucking Hanukkah scene. It doesn't mean that she's trying to win over the Jews again. She's apologizing.
After the fact. Sometimes it doesn't have to be immediately there. You know, a lot of the studies like influence. So it's like you plant it here, yeah, it's separated. But then now you've got in the mind, oh, she's Jewish.
See, so that's implying that the producers had that in mind, and maybe they did. I would love, I love transparency. I would love to talk to the producers. I would love to see what happened back there, you know. Because I mean, I know what happened in the documentary that I was in, and I'm like, y'all told me something different, and I called them out. I'm like, this is not what, you know, like I made a YouTube video. I was like, this is messed up. But yeah, you start to learn that you can't really trust much media sources, or I guess, you know, public media. It's hard to. You really do have to question it. So I think we are in line with that, at least. Like, what the intent? We can't really know.
So now, and I am just going by what I'm observing and, you know, what's out there, because obviously, even though I don't trust media at all, sadly I have to use them as a source, because sometimes that's the only information I have. Yeah. And so then I try to quantify everything that's coming in and say, okay, let me read the entire article, because the headline says one thing, but paragraph 6 contradicts the headline, so now I know about this source. What sources are you using, or have you shifted since your initial video at all?
Well, what I like to look at is like the actual filings themselves, because like that is, you know, there's no opinion, there's no slant at all. So, and see, and obviously the issue also is that a lot of the YouTubers and just accounts that cover this are like a very for Manson and slanted in the other way, so it's hard to consume it without having that slant already in there. So I'm kind of like, okay, let me just wait until I actually can focus, because when I cover a topic, I'm also covering various topics at a time. So when I cover a topic, I want to make sure I'm ready to get into it. This past weekend I was talking about a different a YouTuber, and so I'm like, okay, it's Monday, let's get back into Manson. So
Manson Monday.
Yeah, Manson Monday. That's a good name. Every Monday. So basically, because I planned to do a follow-up last year, but then, you know, I got stuck in my head and didn't end up uploading at all. But when I was doing that, I was looking at his statement, his Instagram, and then I was looking at the other people's statements, and then, you know, I make my own opinions, and then I look at I start going down the connections. Okay, so he said this, and then I kind of just go based off of that, similar to how you're doing as well. Okay, so this connection, because I think it's productive to have these criticisms, these scrutinies on all ends, because not all ends, because for example, okay, so for even the Manson lawsuit, one thing that popped out is the way that they called it a swatting, when it's not. I mean, if it's a swatting, I don't understand why not even TMZ called it a swatting. Typically in swatting, they go inside your house.
What would you call it though? I mean, if it's a false report.
I mean, they called it a wellness check.
But this is a hard one too, because a wellness check often can lead into a swatting type of scenario. Because what wellness are you checking? You're checking, somebody may be in trouble in there. Right. Somebody may be harmed. So the police in general are going in at high alert. So I actually took to calling it a quote baby swatting because of you. I even said, okay, well, call it a swatting, baby swatting, whatever. If it is a false report, it is on the swatting spectrum, if you will.
How is it a false report?
Yeah. And
when it was a wellness check?
Maybe there wasn't a SWAT team coming in, you know, with the guns blazing, but there is always that potential threat. If a person opens the door, they're not expecting something, or they surprise the police. That's why false reports. So we'll call it a false report, possibly. Right? If they found nothing.
Yeah, for sure. Because, okay, and here's the thing, I'm in the YouTuber space, and I know, a lot of people, that listen to this, they're very adamant about being swatting, but like in the YouTuber space, it's very common to have like swattings or wellness checks. For example, like this YouTuber, maybe she exceeds the YouTuber space. Her name is Eugenia Cooney, and she's, you know, struggles with eating disorder. And a lot of people have often called like wellness checks on her. And I've never seen that being called a swatting, but like, yeah, very often people call the police on her house, you know, to see if she's being abused, all this kind of stuff, right? So this kind of happens often, and I don't really see it be labeled that, and any of the times that I've seen it, unless of course the police steps in or they have the SWAT gear, all that kind of stuff. And then
it depends on the wellness check. Again, is it a wellness check that somebody could be a threat to themselves?
Right.
Like you're describing a wellness check, it's like, yeah, you know, we want to make sure she ate or didn't eat or whatever. Not a concern. But is this a wellness check on, hey, is that wife okay, or is she getting attacked?
Yeah, and to put it back in context, the way the filing described it, they described it as a swatting, and then they even defined it like, oh, this is how dangerous it can be. So it's like, but you know, then it continues on to say that, yeah, it felt like it was worthy of being like putting at least a question mark, because what I thought it was also kind of neat of the filing was that, you know, I've covered some lawsuits throughout my YouTube videos too, and I don't typically see this in the filings. They actually provide like citations at the bottom. They actually had like hyperlinks and stuff, like, oh, that's kind of neat. So, you know, it's like when you see that, it wasn't there, but yeah, that's one of my critiques.
Okay, so we can actually agree. You know, maybe it's a scale question, but my argument would be, if it's a false report, it's a false report, and that's evil.
Sorry, I was gonna say also like it's not uncommon for like lawsuit filings to like kind of not amplify, but like, you know, make things sound grave, obviously to sell their point, you know. So that is also not even like it's not even like a grave thing against Manson or anything of the sort.
Well, exactly, and again, though, it all goes down to this. If it was a legitimate police report, then you're right. No, there's no swatting. If it's a false report, then give it a name, but it's still a false report.
Right, and of course, also, if it is indeed a report called in by Ilma, like it states in the lawsuit, then of course that is even bigger, worthy of scrutiny as well.
Yes, well, in Ilma comes up again. Ilma.
Oops. My friend. I'm kidding.
Yeah, she is your friend, though.
Not my friend.
Well, I mean, is she your only direct source, or did you have other direct sources who were involved?
Oh, as far as people I've talked to, yeah, I've not talked to anybody involved in the lawsuit, but it would be fun if I said yes. Would I have my phone taken into the court? That'd be funny.
I think it would get you clicks.
Yeah, that sounds stressful, man. Not the good kind of fun.
You could that umbrella guy.
It's interesting because literally, like, I guess I don't know if it's because I'm like the minority opinion, right? Like, because I haven't seen too many people. There's like another YouTuber that I've seen but not too many people that have do the kind of skepticism of Manson's case, or just kind of like, you know, throw some like question marks there. But because of that, I've had people like accuse me of talking to to Evan Rachel Wood and all this. I'm like, I've never. Like, it's interesting to see like the little conspiracies being made.
Like, I had Colonel Kurtz respond to one of my tweets. I don't remember what it was that I said, but she responded and said something like, Evan Rachel Wood, did you finally make a new account? Or something to that effect. I was so proud of it. I was so proud of that fucking tweet. I pinned it, I think. Or something. Or, no, I couldn't pin it, because it wasn't mine, but I'll show it to y'all whenever I edit this.
About that, when I have, like, I don't know where they come out of thin air.
Well, I mean, if people don't know something, they're going to have conjecture. Like, I can tell you right now, I have not talked to anyone. You know, I mean, I haven't talked to Lindsay Usich. I've not talked to Marilyn Manson at all. The dude wouldn't even know I existed, I'm sure. I don't think Lindsay knows I exist. I've I've talked to people I think who claim to have talked to them or to her, but I don't know that they did or didn't. So again, I'm just going by what I see, and a lot of it is court filings, because court filings, there is a degree of being truthful. Now you can, obviously present your best truth, but you best not be lying, or you're in deep shit.
Like, no,
let's be honest. So if I'm going to go to any source, I'm going to go to that. And what I find remarkable, and circling back to Ilma, and befuddling, is a lot of these claims kind of tie into a manufacture of information and an FBI letter, things of that sort. And I didn't pull up all the evidence, to have on hand or whatever the court filings, because I just wanted to talk it out. And we can always go back and revisit and look at it. But she actually tweeted claiming copyright to all the material that they had on her for manufacturing stuff, which I find to be an odd choice.
Was that the one she deleted?
I think she did delete it, but people do screenshot them, and they have it. It is in the file.
At least she knew to delete it though, because I'm like, what are you thinking?
I don't know if you've seen that, but it is.
I saw it. That's why I was like, because I'm pretty sure she that one, and there was another one that I saw she deleted. So I keep up with a lot of it. I'm like, oh my gosh. So once I actually dig into it, of course, I guess people haven't seen my criticisms of that, because that's not really what I'm focusing on. But it doesn't mean that I don't of course I see it and I can call it out. No problem.
We all speak about what.
But she's the fulcrum. I mean, if you really break down the entire case, you have Elma Gore, Evan Rachel Wood, Ashley Walters ties them all together.
But
it's a very
Eric,
interesting little tie. Everybody's there. And Elma Gore gets with Ashley Walters. Ashley Walters is his assistant, so she has everybody's phone number, everybody's information to contact and say, hey, by the way, hey, by the way, hey, by the way. Oh, and here, we've got this checklist that'll help you out with symptoms. And by the way, I've had a psychiatrist come on here. By the way, the psychiatrist I had come on here believes them. But he still had issues with them.
What is the source that Ilma Gore conjectured everything and told him what to say, or the checklist and everything?
Oh, this is pure conjecture on my part.
Oh, okay. So you're
100%. I feel like Ilma Gore has a little bit of an interesting history behind her. And she may have even inspired good old Juicy.
Juicy what?
Juicy Smollett.
Oh, Juicy. Okay. You inspired him? Or she was inspired by him?
I would say that she maybe inspired him, because remember, she did a wicked painting of Donald Trump and wound up with a black eye because, the MAGA people are worried about that, chasing her down. And within a year or so, Juicy managed to find himself supposedly attacked. Yeah, it's Jussie Smollett, but I like Dave Chappelle's version better. I'm going with Dave. So, coincidentally, you have literally almost a nice little mirror image there. And I think by all accounts of anybody with any kind of intellectual integrity whatsoever will say that he did a hoax. He was convicted. So, I feel safe saying that. I can't defame him. He was convicted. He's a hoaxer. There we go. Got a sentence to back me up. Same way I could say Amber Heard is a liar. She lost. Court says she's a liar. I win. I suspect that Ilma Gore's a bit opportunistic.
Just so y'all know.
And I am troubled.
A court's verdict is still just a perspective, people. It's still just a conclusion. Because evidence can be seen in so many different ways. Its narrative can change 5 different times, by the time it gets to the judge. You know what I'm saying? Witnesses can come up and talk about the same person and have, conflicting fucking testimonies and about the same fucking night or something, that, you know, whatever. Like, say the person in question was seen by 5 people on the same night, and each person, each witness, saw them do the same things, but had completely different perspectives on what they saw. Okay? And then everybody wants to, like, jump on that and say, oh, this person's biased, or this person is lying, or this person is telling the truth. And, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, dude, it's not really any of that. I mean, it could be. It could be some of that. You know? And it probably is some of that, you know, to some degree or another, or in some cases, or maybe it's just that these different 5 people saw the same shit in different ways, because they're different fucking people. You know what I'm saying? Like, basically what I'm trying to say is that there's a reason for trial. You know, you're basically giving up whatever problem it is that you have and putting it in the hands of your lawyer and the opposition's lawyer and the judge and the jury and the court of public opinion. You're giving it up because you don't know what to do with it, or you feel like you're owed something, or whatever it is, or you're trying to prove something. And you know, that's the risk that everybody takes, because it could end up being that the court decided to side with your opposition because they felt that it was more fucking probable that the opposition was in the right and you were in the wrong, in whatever way. And it's totally feasible. It happens all the time, every day, where maybe the court's wrong, but that's the risk that you took. You know, you gave up your own fucking thing, said, here, figure it out for me. Basically, I'm aware that it could totally go against me in the end, but you know, that's the thing. Once you start bringing other people into your bullshit, it's not yours anymore. You know, whatever it is, it's not. And that's why it's so hard for victims to come out, because they know they have to go through all of that. They have to go through all of that. And this is why people, you know, the opposition of this irritate me so much, because it's like, do y'all really think that they aren't expecting these questions? You know, do y'all really think that they really believe that everyone was gonna believe them? And I mean, like, have you ever pondered that maybe the reason why you see so much flaw and problem in the way they're going about all this is because they know that they're probably going to lose? I mean, like, have you ever pondered that at all? Like, seriously, why don't you give that a fucking consideration? You know? I consider everything that y'all say all the time, constantly. Why do you think I'm fucking watching this shit? There's more people who are pro-Manson than, you know, and I'm not even anti-Manson. I'm a fan. I've been a fan of Manson for fucking, since I was 12. I'm like 40 now, okay? But I tend to think that I know my Manson. I just know him. I just know how he is. I just know how he could very well be guilty of all of it very easily. And I'd really like to explain all that to all y'all one day.
By the relationship with her and her sister, as an example.
Mm-hmm. On like just her end or both ends? Because, like, I guess there's a history there too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's definitely history there. It's really dark and really ugly. And I've been, you know, not directly, but it's one step removed, in contact with her sister.
Oh really?
And I kind of feel terrible. And I will be open. She lost the restraining order case. But there are some definite questions on that. I'm going to have a video on that sometime down the road.
Oh, okay, interesting.
But
I'm definitely very curious about it. I mean, it must take a lot to like want to go against your sister in a lawsuit like this, right? So I'm very curious about that for sure.
A twin, for God's sake. I mean,
yeah, exactly, a twin.
I guess you got the evil twin situation.
There's so many rabbit holes to this whole thing, you know.
Okay, so I think I'm gonna pause it there, and I'm gonna upload this, and it'll just be part 1, and I will do part 2 in a little while, and upload that hopefully sometime tonight. Since this is pretty much my first video I'm ever gonna upload, or I've ever uploaded pretty much as far as all this goes. I just want to test the waters, see how it goes. If you hate it, that's great. If you love it, that's great. If you don't give a fuck, that's great. But I'm tired of being silent, and I'm going to start talking about this. And also, just for future reference, I am open to having this conversation with anyone on the Manson case on either side. So, I don't hate, folks. I don't hate. I may very much strongly agree with you, or disagree with you, but no disrespect at all. That's not what I'm here for. Thanks for watching and listening. Bye.